Hello everyone and welcome to the Warhammer Old World FAQ and errata version 1.1. Today I'll be going over the FAQ and of course the errata. I'll be giving some notes that I made and some thoughts. In another video we'll be going over the forces of fantasy and the ravening hordes. So, starting with the errata. On page 101, combat result bonus. Change the entry as follow. Whilst in combat order or close order formation where the unit strength of 5 or more may claim a bonus of +1 combat result point. Yeah, so what's the difference here? Versus in the past a unit in close order consisting of 2 or more models instead of unit strength of 5. So definitely a change here. You can't claim combat bonus anymore if you only have 2 models remaining of, say, for example, a unit of Graveguard. On page 161, heavy casualties, change the first paragraph as follows. If during any single phase other than a combat phase a unit loses more than a quarter, 25% of the models it contained, at the start of that phase it must make a panic test. The difference is, in the past it was versus unit strength. So not the models you had, but the unit strength. And I think to make it a little bit clearer, they changed it to models. On page 167, chariot runners, change the first sentence of the rule to friendly models whose true type is chariot can draw a line over sight over our true models with the special rule and can move through friendly units if they are in skirmish formation and if the majority of models have this special rule. So a new addition has been placed here: if the majority of models have this special rule, so not only one. For example, if you have a unit of 5 models and only one has chariot runners, does it mean that the whole unit will get this special rule? And I've noticed that in a lot of the other errata and FAQ rules, they made this addition. The same comes for evasive. Change the first sentence of the rule to once per turn, when a unit in which the majority of the models have the special rule is declared a target during the enemy shooting phase, that unit may choose to fall back in good order, fleeing directly away from the enemy unit shooting at it. Also a new addition if the majority of models have the special rule. And the same counts for page 169, fire and flee. If the majority of the models in a unit armed with missile weapons have the special rule, the unit may declare that it will fire or flee as a charge reaction. Going on page 176, change the third sentence of the first paragraph of the rule to when a model with this special rule moves, roll the dice to determine its maximum movement. So important to note is that the result of the dice became the maximum movement. The must move wording seems to be gone, so I think that means that it does not have to move as much as you rolled. For example, you rolled 7, a 4 and a 3. Maybe you're allowed to move 5. At least that is what I think. If that's not the case, please let me know something in the comments below. So going to reserve move. Change the first sentence of the rule to unless it charge, march or flat during the movement phase, a unit in which the majority of models have the special rule may make a reserve move at the end of the shooting phase after all shooting has been resolved. Again, only if the majority of the models have this special rule. Going to swift stride. A unit which consists entirely of models with this special rule increases maximum possible charge range by 3 inches, and when it makes a charge, flee or pursuit roll, may apply a d6 modifier to the result. Very important to note that this is a new addition with the entirely of models with this special rule. So not even a majority, but all your models need to have swift stride to benefit of the special rule. The Berserker Blade has a new addition, a new note, which says the wielder of the Berserker Blade is frenzied. So instead of only the weapon saying frenzy, the wielder also becomes frenzied. The Dazzling Helm normally improves your armor value saved by 1, but a new addition has been put there, a new note: models whose trope type is infantry or cavalry only, so no monsters or behemoths or anything, they cannot benefit from the Bedazzling Helm. Going to dispelling a spell on the quick sheet, the quick reference sheet, there was something that was wrong. It said that if the result exceeds the casting roll, the spell is dispelled. So that's the new rule. On the sheet it says a result equal to or exceed the casting roll. Yeah, that was the case in 8th edition. That's not the case anymore. The spelling became a little bit more difficult because you always have to have a higher result than the original spell. Alright, going to the FAQ. First with the general principles. If I mark the position of a unit, then proceed to move it again before putting it back where it was and moving it again. Does this count as a take back? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so no take backs, he's there. You cannot put your unit, let's say 6 inches forward and then put it back and then change your mind. No. If you have moved your unit, then it's moved. Can a unit arrayed in close order or open order formation be one model wide? Yes, that's possible. As I said earlier, you can have only 1 or 2 skeletons with close order to be in close order formation, but they will not be able to claim the combat bonus for close order. How does a close order unit of just 1 model act? Is it still a close order formation or does it act like a skirmisher? Close order unit always acts as such even if it only contains a single model. Yeah, that's important to note. If it's close order, it's just close order. It doesn't magically become a skirmisher. If you have a lord on a dragon, which is a close order unit, it doesn't suddenly become a skirmisher because it's a single model. Does a unit count as being obscured when some of the models within it are behind others? No, a unit cannot be obscured from the enemy by itself. So you cannot obscure yourself in a unit. So the own unit, that would be kind of weird also, I believe. Alright, so those were the general principles. Then we go to magic. If a wizard miscasts and rolls an 8 or higher on the miscast table, is it only that wizard that cannot attempt to cast any more spells for the remainder of that turn, or is it all wizards in their army? Yeah, this is very important, I believe, because a roll of 8 or higher on the miscast table affects all friendly wizards. I always thought in the past that it was only that particular wizard, but it's for your whole army. So if you roll 8 or higher, bad luck, you can't cast anymore that turn. If a wizard has a magic item or special rule that allows them to reroll a failed casting roll, can they reroll a natural double 1 and avoid a miscast? No, a roll of double 1 isn't merely a failed casting roll, it is a miscast. So you can't re-roll it, you can't get away from the miscast. You roll the double 1 and you have to live with the consequences. What happens to a remains in play spell that's already in effect if the wizard that cast it attempts to cast it again? It ends immediately. So you can't have 2 of the same remains in play spells by that same wizard. You can only have 1, so if you cast it for the second time, the first one will disappear. Can a model wearing armor or carrying a shield cast a bound spell? Yes, yeah, that's definitely possible. As I've seen in a game I played versus Timo, a friend of mine, a couple of weeks ago. He had a unit of man-eaters and the man-eaters had a ruby ring of ruin. Of course they were wearing armor. They were still able to use the ruby ring. Can a wizard with a physical attribute that counts as a type of armor, such as a treatment ancient arboreal armor, make casting on dispel rolls? Yes, while such attributes are as protective as a suit of armor, such models do not wear armor. Yeah, so wearing armor means you put something on, like for example light armor or heavy armor, and the treatment ancient arboreal armor is something that's like his hide, like his skin, so doesn't really count. In my eyes, it also doesn't really count as armor. But it's good that it's been clarified. I think might have been a point of dispute. Going further with magic. Does a wizard that has joined a unit need to be in base contact with an enemy model to cast an assailment spell, or do they only need to be within the fighting rank? They only need to be within the fighting rank. Yeah, so you can put them all the way on the corners of your fighting rank, trying to protect your own wizard, but they still be able to cast their assailment spells. If a wizard declines a challenge and retires from combat, does their unit lose the benefits of any ranged self spells that the wizard has cast? Yes, Very interesting to know. So you can't buff your own unit and then decide to decline a challenge and retire from combat. If a unit with the Fly X special rule moves over a magical vortex that counts as dangerous terrain, is it affected by it? Yes, magical vortexes are considered tall enough to affect even models that are flying high above the battlefield. So you can't evade a magical vortex by going over it. You really have to go from the sides if you want to, if you don't want to make that dangerous terrain test. Alright, going to movement, quite a big part. Can a unit that rallies and reforms during the rallying phase, fleeing unit subphase, move during the movement phase? Yes, they are able to move. Great. Can a unit move whilst locked in combat? No, they cannot. No, it's not possible. Is a unit maximum possible charging range the maximum distance from an enemy unit at which it can declare a charge, or the maximum distance it can move when making a charge move? Yeah, very interesting for either frenzied or impetuous units. So it is the maximum distance from an enemy unit at which it can declare a charge. Yeah, so for example, you got something with a movement of 9, for example, with Swift Stride in combination, so 6 plus 3, which is 9, so, and the normal movement value is fly 10. If then that unit would be frenzied or impetuous, then the maximum charge range would be 19. When a unit performs a maneuver, can its front edge pass through another unit? No, the only exception to this is when a unit pivots. So other maneuvers are not allowed to do this, only when a unit pivots. When a unit wheels, is it acceptable for a rear corner to pass through another unit? So the rear corner, yes, provided that the unit does not end its movement on top of another unit or within 1 inch of an enemy unit. When a unit wheels, those at its rear do not really follow a long curving path, as it might appear when moving a large block of models on the table. In reality, they would take a more direct route, following the path of the front rank and resuming their formation behind it. So they're not really going through an enemy unit or a different unit. They try to avoid it, of course, but you cannot end your movement on top of another unit or within 1 inch of an enemy unit. Does a unit that has to declare charge due to being frenzied or impetuous have to do so if a friendly unit of skirmishers lies between it and a potential charge target, obstructing its movement? If there's a chance of the skirmishers moving so that they are no longer an obstruction, if they declare charge, for example, yes, otherwise no. So for example, if you got 2 units and you're going to declare charges, if the skirmishers are going to declare a charge and then they move away, then the frenzy units also have to charge. Of course, you can't say, okay, I'm not going to charge with my frenzy unit because my skirmishers are in the way, and then you charge with your skirmishers so that they're gone, and then the frenzy unit didn't charge. No. So you have to declare everything that's charging. So if the skirmishers are charging, the frenzy units are charging away, then the frenzy unit also have to charge. Although it cannot make a charge move, a unit in marching column can declare a charge. Why is this? Couple of reasons. First, a drilled unit that declares a charge whilst in marching column can freely readjust its ranks to adopt a combat order after determining its charge range, but before moving, thus allowing it to make a charge. So if you are in marching column with drilled, you can first redress the ranks and then you will be able to make the charge move. Secondly, units that are obliged to declare a charge in certain circumstances, for example frenzied or impetuous, must do so even whilst in marching column. They cannot make the charge move, and so the charge is failed. Yeah, this prevents marching columns being used to avoid declaring compulsory charges. Yeah, that makes sense. People try to circumvent the whole idea of being frenzied or impetuous. Put your unit in a marching column, but that will definitely not be the case, so you can't do that. If you're frenzied or impetuous, you always have to charge, if possible. Alternatively, there might be a psychological advantage to declaring a charge with a marching column. For example, the unit might cause terror, or the charge target might already be fleeing. Of course, that isn't easy to set up situations where such tactics can be used, and therein lies a challenge. Yeah, so for example, with terror, indeed, you can make the enemy unit flee. So there are a couple of things here. It's interesting. to see that even in marching column you can declare a charge, but in some cases it will be failed. In some special cases it will have another adaptation. Definitely interesting. Going further with movement, if a drilled unit in marching column has to declare a charge due to being frenzied or impetuous, can it choose not to use drill to redress the ranks and adopt combat order? If it's able to redress the ranks, for example there's space for it to do so, no. A unit that's obliged to charge must endeavor to make use of any special rules in it has in order to charge. The unit just really wants to charge, and it will play the game without you if it has to. So if you can redress your ranks to make the charge, then you have to. Yeah, so there's no way you can circumvent the whole idea of being frenzied or impetuous and not wanting to charge if it's within your maximum possible charge range. If you can make it, you have to try making it. If I want to charge an enemy unit that is a large target with a unit of mine that is in its front arc, for example, but cannot because the enemy unit is already engaged in its front arc, can I instead charge its flank? No, sometimes a charge isn't possible. For example, so you want to charge a giant, but the giant is already fighting a unit of 10, or let's say a unit of 30 skeletons, and they're all arranged in 30 by 10 by 3. So then the giant is almost completely surrounded and there's no room for you to charge. So then it will be impossible. Doesn't mean you will get a flank charge in that case. When a unit redirects a charge, can it charge a unit that lies beyond its maximum possible charge range? No, definitely not. If a unit that is arrayed in open order wishes to use the fast cavalry special rule to perform a quick turn after marching, can any of the models within that unit move further than twice their movement characteristics? No, as stated on page 124, no model can move further than twice its movement characteristics. However, there are obvious exceptions, such as marching column marches, or when a dice roll determines a unit's movement. Yeah. So in most cases, no, because you can just only go twice your movement characteristics, except for some exceptions. When a unit enters the battle as reinforcement, is there a limit to how far onto the battlefield models can be placed? Yes, the unit is considered to have moved onto the battlefield, therefore no model can be placed more than twice its movement characteristics from the edge of the battlefield its unit enters from. So twice is the maximum, not more than that. Going over to combat, models in the fighting rank that are killed before they have a chance to fight cannot, but can a model make supporting attacks even if the model in front of it has slain? Yes, if they not have been killed, models able to make supporting attacks can do so as normal. In other words, casualties inflicted reduce firstly the numbers of the models in the fighting rank that are able to fight, and secondly the number of the models in the supporting rank that are able to fight. So for example, you have 5 models in your fighting rank, you lose them all, but you have thrusting spears, then the 5 models behind the fighting rank are still able to fight. How many attacks can a model with a split profile make if it's in the fighting rank but not in base contact with the enemy? A model with a split profile consists of not one model but several, all sharing the same base. Therefore, each model on that base could make a single attack. In the case of a cavalry model, for example, this would be 1 attack from the rider and 1 from their mount. Yeah, I made a mistake here as well. I had a unit of blood crushers versus a giant, and one of the blood crushers was not in base contact, so I thought that the mount or the rider, one of the two, was not able to fight. But it's 1 attack from the mount and 1 attack from the rider. Can a close order unit of just 1 model claim the close order combat result bonus? Yes, provided it has a unit strength of 5 or more, as per the errata on page 1. As mentioned previously, a close order unit of just 1 model is still a close order unit. For example, you got a Lord and a Dragon with still 9 wounds remaining, then he has a unit strength of 9, so he can still claim that 1 combat result bonus. If my unit loses a round of combat and either gets ground or falls back in good order, can I choose to use different weapons in the next turn if the enemy made a follow-up or pursuit move? No. Even though the units separated momentarily, they remain locked in place and engaged in an ongoing combat once a follow-up or pursuit move has been made. In other words, because the combat is ongoing, neither unit is able to swap one weapon for another. So if, for example, you got your black orcs, they can choose different weapons. You first had great weapons, but you lost combat and you want to change to hand weapons shields, but you gave ground, then you're not allowed to do so. What happens to a unit that gives ground whilst within 2 inches of the edge of the battlefield? Should any part of a unit cross beyond the edge of the battlefield whilst it is giving ground, the entire unit is removed from play and count as being destroyed, so then they are gone. What happens to a unit that cannot give ground due to the presence of another unit? The unit's movement stops immediately as if it were surrounded. What happens if a unit that wishes to make a pursuit or overrun move cannot move due to the presence of another unit? It may happen that it's simply impossible for a pursuing or over unit to make without it ending up on top of another unit. In such case, the unit does not move but is considered to have made a pursuit or overrun move. So they don't move, they will stay where they are, but they will be considered as having done so. If a unit completely destroys its enemy in combat and it makes an overrun move, can it attempt to reform after moving? Unless it pursued into a fresh enemy, yes, a unit that overruns makes a normal pursuit move, and since its enemy has already been wiped out, it may attempt to reform as it had run down its foe, as described on page 129. So you're allowed to reform, but you have to roll your leadership and to see if you're able to reform. Challenges. If a wizard is engaged in a challenge, knows and uses an assailant spell that can hit multiple enemy models, for example a template, are multiple enemy models hit, or is it only the other participant in the challenge that can be hit? When an assailant spell is cast in a challenge, it can only hit the other participant in the challenge. Yeah, normally in the past you would take the two models separately and put them somewhere on the battlefield, representing them being in the challenge. So that's also the idea that you cannot suddenly hit somebody else as well. No, they are really only fighting each other. One participant in a challenge causes impact hits or makes stomp attacks. Where are they directed? They are directed against the other participant in a challenge. Yeah, so for example, you have a chariot, a champion on a chariot. He is charging a unit of, say, Chaos Warriors. I see them in my head, like the chariot is riding, and while it's riding, it's like issuing a challenge. The champion steps forwards and takes the full impact hits of the chariot. At least that's how I see it in my head. If one participant in a challenge is killed, can other models engage in the same combat direct their attacks against the survivor during the same combat phase when it's their turn to fight? No. Even if one participant in a challenge has been slain, the challenge is considered to be ongoing until the end of the combat phase. So no getting in sneak attacks or something else dishonorable. You cannot attack the survivor of the ongoing challenge. The psychology of war. Damn, that's a difficult word. The psychology of war. Are units required to make panic attacks due to the actions of friendly models? For example, if a wizard miscasts and rolls a 2 to 4, miscast table causing a dimensional cascade and inflicting sufficient casualties on a friendly unit to cause it to panic, must that unit make a panic test? Yes. Also definitely sounds like something like that would cause panic. Units must make a panic test when a nearby friendly unit with a unit strength of 5 or more is destroyed. When is unit strength counted? From the start of the turn, the start of the phase, or the point at which the unit is destroyed? From the start of the phase during which the unit was destroyed. For example, if a friendly unit with a unit strength of 10 is destroyed by enemy shooting during a single shooting phase, it causes panic in nearby friendly units. Players are not expected to remember the unit strength of every unit from turn to turn or phase to phase, but should keep track of unit strength during each phase. Yeah, I think it's logical that you keep track of how many models have I lost. How much has this reduced my unit strength when I'm getting shot at, and I think the opposing player will also do that if he wants to cause panic in that unit. Going to the universal special rules, there are quite a lot of these. Can you choose not to roll for the arrival of ambushers during your start of turn self phases? No, unless that unit itself or the scenario being played has a special rule that changes the way in which ambushers arrive, you must roll for the arrival during each of your turns, from round 2 onwards. However, any special rules that affect the arrival of ambushers which take effect after the start of turn subphase but before the compulsory move subphase may be used as normal, regardless of the result of the ambusher's roll. So in normal cases you will not be able to stop ambushers from arriving. If you got them, they have to arrive starting from round 2 onwards. If a weapon with the Armor Bane X special rule also has the poison attack special, what happens if I roll a natural 6 when rolling to hit? A rule such as Armor Bane X can have no effect if no roll to wound is made. In such cases you may choose to roll to wound as normal in the hope of improving the weapon's AP characteristics. Yeah, so important to note that you cannot really combine poison attacks with Armor Bane X, and they kinda cancel each other out. So if you have poison attacks, then you can't go for Armor Bane X unless you really want to roll to wound. Does the Armor Bane X special rules apply to spells cast by a model with the rules such as assailment spells, magical missiles or magical vortexes? No. No, it's probably only for the weapon, not for spells or whatsoever. Some mounted models have the countercharge special rule, but also do not, even though they have the same type of mount. Is this intentional? Yes, countercharge is a rule that represents the skill and ferocity of the rider, not their mount. Yeah, so the rider needs to have the skill of countercharge. It's not the horse that is countercharging. Can a drilled unit retest the ranks before giving ground? Yes, a unit that gives ground is not a fleeing unit. Yeah, that's very important to note. But note, as mentioned previously, should any part of unit cross beyond the edge of the battlefield, whilst it is giving ground, the entire unit is removed from play and counts as having been destroyed. It is intentional that a drilled unit might be able to avoid this fate. Yeah, so you have to keep that in mind, that you don't accidentally destroy your own unit while redressing the ranks. Do effects that modify a model's movement characteristics also modify how far a model with the Fly X special rule can fly? Yes, if a model has the Fly X special rule, the number given in brackets is essentially a second movement characteristics. Any effect that modifies one will modify both. So for example, my zombie dragon has a flying movement of 9. I cast Van Hels's Dance Macabre on the zombie dragon. I roll, doesn't matter really what I roll, then it will go to a movement of 10, fly 10. Can a model with 2 versions of the Fly X special rule combine both and fly further? No, a model that has more than one version of the Fly X special rule essentially has 2 movement characteristics it can use when flying. Of these you may use the best, yeah, so you can only choose one, you cannot add them up and fly even further. If a unit with Frenzy or Impetuous has 2 movement characteristics, for example if it can also fly, does it have to use the greater when determined if it must declare a charge? If it's able to use the greater, then yes, it must. Tactically you might not want to, but a Frenzied Lord of Chaos on a Mighty Dragon doesn't care about your tactics. Yeah, so if you can make the charge while being frenzy, you have to try making it in any way possible. If a unit that is subject to frenzy becomes subject to frenzy again, does it get 2 attacks? No. A unit is either frenzied or it isn't. Multiple instances of frenzy are not cumulative, so they do not stack. Can a model with the large target special rule draw a line of sight over or through another model with the large target special rule? No. No, the large target you cannot look through them. What happens if a weapon is subject to both the ponderous and quickshot special rules? The rules effectively cancel one another out, meaning the weapon would suffer a -1 hit-to-hit modifier for moving and shooting. Yeah, ponderous normally saying that you cannot move and shoot, quickshot saying you can and that you do not have the -1 hit modifier, so they cancel each other out. Can a character that's fleeing use the rallying cry special rule? No, because no one would hear them over the sound of them running away. Can a unit with the random movement special rule move around or past an enemy unit out of one arc into another before making contact with that unit? Yeah, so it's a very convoluted way of saying, can I maybe with random movement get a flank charge if I normally would have a front charge? No. Whilst units that move randomly do not declare charges, if you wish to move one into contact with an enemy unit, it must fulfill the same criteria as any other charging unit during its movement. Yeah, so you cannot get, like, for example, what I said earlier, a flank charge if you have to, if you are standing in front. How far does a unit with the random movement special rule move when giving ground? All units move 2 inches when giving ground. Can 2 regeneration saves be combined together to improve the armor value? No, armor values given as a target number cannot be combined to lower the target number. As with war saves, only a single regeneration save can be attempted, and different regeneration saves cannot be combined together. If a model has more than 1 regeneration save, simply use the best. Yeah, so you cannot stack them on top of each other, you can only take the best one. If a model with Regeneration X plus special rule passes its regeneration save against an attack with the multiple wounds X special rule, do I still need to roll the dice if the number of multiple wounds is generated by a dice roll? Yes, even though the wounds were saved, they still count towards the combat result, so you have to roll to see how many wounds were dealt. Can a unit that deploys using the Scout special rule make a Vanguard move? No. When a unit that does not have the Stupidity special rule is joined by a character that does, the unit becomes subject to the special rule. What happens if the character leaves the unit? The unit ceases to be subject to Stupidity the moment the character leaves the unit. Yeah, it's not contagious, not everybody will become stupid for the rest of the battle. That's fortunately not the case. If a unit with the Stupidity special rule fails its leadership test, how long is it stupid for? Unit tests for stupidity in each of their start of turn subphases, unless they are engaged in combat. By extension, a unit that fails a stupidity test remains stupid only until it passes a subsequent test. If a unit of skirmishers succumbs to stupidity, in which direction do they move? They should continue moving in the general direction they moved the previous turn, or if they did not move in the previous turn, towards the nearest enemy unit. So that's interesting. If you haven't moved in the whole game, then they will go towards the nearest enemy unit. So maybe they will even wheel and go towards that enemy unit. Swift Stride enables a model to move further during a charge move than its maximum possible charge range. Why is this? Because models with the special rule delight in running down cowards who flee before a charge. Yeah, that's a great explanation. Can't say anything bad about that. If a character without the Vanguard special rule joins a unit with it during deployment, can the character make a Vanguard move with the unit? No, what's more, if the unit is formed, it will not be able to make a Vanguard rule. However, if the unit is in skirmish formation, it can make its Vanguard move as normal, leaving the character behind. So you can first put your character in a skirmisher unit that's in skirmish formation, and then with your skirmishers you can leave the character behind. I don't really see the implication of why you would want to do this, but it's possible. Can a character without the veteran special rule that has joined a unit with the veteran special rule benefit from it when attempting to use a special rule that requires them to make a leadership test? Rallying Cry, for example. No, when a character attempts to use a special rule that requires them to make a leadership test, they must use their own leadership characteristics and, unless specifically stated otherwise, cannot use any additional special rules they themselves do not have. So, cannot try to take rules from the unit you have joined. You only have your own things, your own special rules. Going to unusual formations. Some attacks allow a specific model within a unit to be targeted. Can such an attack be used to break the coherency of a unit of skirmishers and cause other models to be removed as well? No, as stated on page 184, you cannot remove a model from a unit of skirmishers if doing so would cause the unit to lose coherency. However, if an attack targets a specific model, for example a character or champion, that model must be removed if the attack reduces it to 0 wounds. In such case, simply replace the removed model with another model belonging to the same unit, one that could be removed as a casualty in order to maintain the unit coherency. Yeah, so you can't get like 40k scenarios where you destroy a couple of models which will break coherency and then other models will be destroyed as well. That's not the case here in Old World. You will just replace that one destroyed model with another one. Coming to characters. When a character takes a chariot as a mount, do they replace one of the crew? No, the points you pay for a character includes his crew, whether that chariot included in your army or in its own as a mount for a character. However, in reality it might prove difficult to find a character and the full complement of a crew into the chariot model itself. Yeah, for example, Tomb King chariots, it's almost impossible to get 2 crew in, so getting 2 crew in and a character is just not, it's physically impossible. If so, it is perfectly acceptable to remove one or more of the crew models to make space for the character. In such cases, we can think of the missing crew model profiles as a way of representing that the piece pulling a character's chariots are bound to be bigger, stronger, and better trained than normal. So it's interesting, you still have the crew if you pay, for example, the chariot, but in some cases, well, it doesn't fit, so maybe you will have one of the crew members and one of the of your characters. Very interesting. I'm not completely sure yet what that means in the game itself. Does that mean that that one crew member is still able to fight? Not really sure how that works. Maybe if somebody knows, please let me know in the comments below. A character mounted on a ridden monster or a chariot can choose to use their own or the mount's armor value, whichever is better. If the character wears magic armor but I choose to use the mount's armor value, can I still claim all the benefits conferred by the magic armor? No, you must use a magic item fully or not at all. So it's everything or nothing. You can't take best of both worlds. If a character mounted on a ridden monster or chariot carries a shield, does it improve the mount's armor value? No, a shield is carried by the character, not the mount. So you can't improve the character's armor value with the shield of the character. That doesn't make sense anyway. If a warband character, as described on page 180, joins a warband with a rank bonus of 1 or more, does the modifier to the leadership characteristics increase their command range? Yes. Okay, interesting. If a warband character joins a unit that isn't a warband, does that unit's rank bonus modify their leadership characteristics? No, because they are not a warband character themselves. I mean, that unit is not a warband themselves, so they cannot benefit from that rank bonus. That makes sense, because they're not the same type of unit. Cannons do not directly target enemy models, they target a point on the ground. How does this work with targeting lone characters? Can a cannon be fired in such a way as to hit a lone character that would normally be protected from shooting by the proximity to a friendly unit? The purpose of targeting lone characters rule is to protect characters from enemy shooting, even from shooting that does not follow the usual rules, though it does not protect them from templates. Therefore, and in the spirit of this rule, unless they are the closest target to the cannon, an enemy character that is within 3 inches of a friendly unit that contains 5 or more models of the same troop type cannot be struck by a cannonball, even if their base lies directly under the path of the bouncing cannonball. However, if a lone character base lies directly underneath the strike point of a cannonball, they are hit. Yeah. So normally they are protected by a cannon, by cannon fire. I think it's very hard to get the base directly underneath the strike point of a cannonball. It's basically, well, almost impossible, or it's a very unusual situation. But it's interesting to keep in mind, that is for sure. Some magic weapons or special rules allow specific models within a unit to be targeted. Do such attacks ignore the lookout sir rule? No. You can target that character, but they can still benefit from the lookout sir rule. If a named character is equipped with a mundane weapon such as a lance or cavalry spear and a magic weapon, can they choose to use their lance or cavalry spear, or must they use their magic weapon? They must use their magic weapon. However, some named characters will carry a backup weapon, which they can use should their magic weapon be destroyed. Yeah. For example, you have a monster slayer sword. It makes sense you don't want to use it against just random rank and file troops, but you have no choice. You have to use your magic weapon. There's no swapping in between, except for special characters in case their main weapon gets destroyed. Alright, getting to weapons of war. Do special rules conferred by a model's weapon apply to attacks made by that model's mount? No, any rules conferred by a weapon, be it magical or mundane, apply only to attacks made with that weapon. This can include, but is not limited to, rules unique to a specific type of weapon. special rules that apply to a particular weapon or special rules that apply to a magic weapon. For example, if a wizard is armed with the Sword of Swiftness, attacks made with that weapon have to strike for a special rule, but the wizard cannot claim that wielding the weapon allows them to cast assailant spells at initiative 10. So the wizard with the weapon has initiative 10, but doesn't mean that he can use the initiative 10 of the weapon to cast his assailant spells. That's definitely important to keep in mind. To give another example, if a model has a special rule unique to its faction that grants additional rules to a hand weapon, rule of an orc or chariot have the chopper special rule, for example, that rule applies only to the actual hand weapons carried by the riders or chariot crew, not the weapons belonging to the mounts or draft animals that count as hand weapons. Yeah, so the boars or the mounts in general also have hand weapons, but they don't get that extra +1 strength of the choppers because they are not wielding the choppers. Some monsters have weapons with notes that state they must make or may choose to make one attack or one additional attack with that weapon in combat. Can they make more than one attack with such weapons? No, if it's noted on a weapon's profile that the model may or must make a specific number of attacks with that weapon, normal attacks or otherwise, that's how many attacks it will make with that weapon. So that's how many attacks you must make, you can't choose in between. Can a model armed with 2 hand weapons choose to fight with just one hand weapon? Yes, as noted on page 213, unless stated otherwise, all models are assumed to be equipped with a hand weapon. A model with 2 has by definition 2, and may choose to fight with just 1, forgoing the extra attacks +1 special rule in favor of some other benefit. Yeah, I can't think of an example, but that's possible, so you can choose to not hit with that extra hand weapon, but only with your main hand weapon. When can a model use a lance? During any turn in which it charged or count as having charged, so not when giving ground, for example. Can a missile weapon be used in combat? No, of course not. Can a cannon target a point on the ground if woods or hill lies between it and that point? No, a cannon cannot shoot over woods or hills, even if it's on a hill. However, a stone thrower can if it's choose to fire indirectly. Yeah, stone throwers can, however cannons cannot shoot over hills or forests. It's just not possible. Can a cannon target a point on the ground if another unit lies between it and that point? Not unless that cannon is on a hill and that unit is not. However, as above, a stone thrower can if it chooses to fire indirectly. So you have to make sure that with your own units you don't block your own cannon, because then you will not be able to shoot. Can a cannon be shot in such a way as to hit an enemy unit that is engaged in combat with a friendly unit? No, page 143 of the rulebook makes it clear that except in rare cases, units cannot shoot enemy units that are engaged in combat. Maybe the one and sole exception for this is Skaven. In the case of a cannon, this means that the target point cannot be placed in such a way as to risk the cannonball hitting a friendly unit or an enemy unit engaged in combat with a friendly unit. Can a war machine shoot using the ballistic skill of a character that has joined it? No, because a war machine and screw are treated as a single model. You must use the crew's ballistic skill. So you can't in this way, I'm going to join this unit with my character that has a higher ballistic skill so to improve the shooting. No, that's not possible. Nope. Warhammer armies. If my opponent and I have agreed to play a 2000 points game, but my army is not exactly 2000 points, for example it's 1997 points, can I take off something limited to 1 to 0 per 1000 points by the army composition list if I'm using? Yes, such limitations are based on the size of the game you are playing rather than the exact points value of your game. So if you're playing a 2000 point game, for example, you are allowed to take 2 cannons, if normally you're only allowed to take 1 cannon for every 1000 points. Does an allied contingent have to abide by the restrictions given in the army composition list it is drawn from? Yes, an allied contingent is a small army within a large army, made using a grand army or army of infamy composition list. Within a 2000 point army, for example, an allied contingent of 500 points would have to spend at least 125 points on core units, could spend no more than 250 points on characters, and would be unable to include any units limited to 0 to 1 per 1000 points. Yeah, important to note definitely that last sentence, that you can't take something that normally you only can take if you have 1000 points. Warhammer Battles. The rulebook lists the minimum size of battlefield as 30 inches times 44 inches for games up to 1000 points, 44 inches times 60 inches for 1001 to 3000 points, and 44 inches times 90 inches for games of 3001 points or above. Do we have to use these sizes? No, these are the minimum recommended sizes. Normal size battlefield for a game of 2000 and 3000 points is 48 inches times 72 inches. And players are encouraged to use this. The minimum sizes are based on the folding card battlefields Game Workshop produces. These are ideal when space is an issue for smaller games. For example, we prefer our 44 inches times 60 inches battlefield for a game of 1000 or 1500 points, rather than the normal or traditional 48 times 48 inches battlefield. We find the smaller rectangular shape more pleasing. So those are recommended minimum sizes, but I think the normal map size is 48 inches times 72 inches. The laws of magic. If a unit upon which Earthen Rampart has been cast is obliged to declare a charge, if the unit is frenzied or unpassionate for example, must it do so? If so, can it make a charge move? Earthen Rampart does not prevent a unit from declaring a charge, it prevents it from charging. In other words, yes, the unit must declare a charge if it's obliged to do so, for example frenzy. However, because the unit cannot charge, it does not move at all and charge is failed. Yeah, so again, with Earthen Rampart, you cannot circumvent the frenzy of Impetuous. Can a unit upon which Earthen Rampart has been cast make a counter-charge reaction? No. A unit that counter-charges counts as having charged, therefore a counter-charge is a charge, and if Earthen Rampart has been cast on that unit, you cannot make the counter-charge. You can declare it, but nothing will happen. Can the spell Spectral Doppelganger from the Law of Illusions be used with a magic weapon that allows the wield to make only a single attack? Some weapons say that you can only make a single attack, or have like a special rule you can only make one single attack with this or that characteristics. No, weapons limited to a single attack can only inflict a single hit, so you can't get an average of 7 automatic hits with Spectral Doppelganger. How unfortunate that is. Alright, getting at the last part of the FAQ, magic items. Can the wearer of the Wizarding Hat cast spells whilst wearing armor? Yes, the wearer of the Wizarding Hat is not actually a wizard. The magical powers are granted by a haunted hat, which is not affected by any armor the model may wear. So that's interesting, so you can still be a wizard with the Wizarding Hat and wear armor at the same time. Can the wearer of the Wizarding Hat also wear a magic helmet, such as the Bedazzling Helm? Yes, because one is an enchanted item, the other is a type of magic armor, but we hope anyone equipping a model in such a way would make the effort to depict it wearing 2 hats. That would make a fantastic model. I would like to see that. But yes, it is possible, it's definitely possible. If the Scroll of Transmogrification is successfully cast against a wizard mounted on a rhythm monster, dragon for example, what happens to the mount? The wizard is transmogrified, but not the mount. Yeah, because the mount is not affected by the spell. In the example given, you would be left with a frog riding a dragon, which would be quite a sight to behold. Some models can be found in one faction's army list, but can be included in an army made using composition list belonging to a different faction. Dragon Ogre Shaggards, for example, can be found in the Beastman Greyherd's army, but can be taken in an army using the Warriors of Chaos. What lists of magic items do such models have access to? Models can purchase magic items from the list of common magic items in the Warhammer The Old World rulebook, or from their own faction list of magic items. A Dragon Ogre Shaggard, for example, can purchase items from the common or Beastman Greyherd magic item list. So not from the Warriors of Chaos, a Grand Army composition list, or any magical items they have. No, because you're getting them from the army that they belong to from that faction. So coming from Beastman of Chaos, you can take magic items from Beastman of Chaos, or the common magic items. I believe that makes sense. Alright, with that being said, that was the FAQ and the errata. If I miss anything, please let me know. If I made a mistake anywhere, which might be possible, please also let me know in the comments below. In another video, we'll be going over the Ravening Hordes and the Forces of Fantasy FAQ. That will be for another time. I hope you liked the video, and I'd like to see you soon again.